Hello, everybody. We're back with another episode of Incessantly Seeking Podcast. We're here with Hollywood executive Adriana Barrón, and we're talking about online dating today. So, Adriana, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Adriana has been super open on social media about her experiences, like trenching the waters of like the online dating world. And I'm so excited to hear, like, how do you start it? Did you pick a particular app? Did you get recommendations from friends?
I have been on the app since they started. Honestly, I had a Tinder back in the day and then it evolved to Bumble. And then I've at some point downloaded Hinge and Coffee Meets Bagel, which I didn't like and I deleted it. And every once in a while, a new app pops up and I'll download it and try it and then just don't like it. I think I'm mostly right now somewhere between like Bumble, Raya, and Hinge, with most of my dates coming out of either Hinge or Bumble.
Awesome. I've tried Hinge and I've tried Bumble. I haven't tried the other ones, but I remember when Bumble was so popular that they were sponsoring Coachella. And then I thought, wow, this is like the new Facebook. Everybody has it now. So it became kind of overwhelming. Now, when you meet let's say you match with someone, right? What is it you look for on their profiles?
Um, it really depends. Obviously, there's something about physical attraction that is important in the apps, but also I do try to see that they have coherent bios. It's really, really hard to want to go out on a date with a guy that doesn't say anything in his bio or that, like, whatever he says is kind of mean or obnoxious. Like, a guy who's like, if you want to know, just ask me, but like in a mean tone, like, then I'm not gonna ask because you're already coming off as a little bit unkind in your bio.
Right.
And then there's a couple of the others, which are a little bit more superficial. I definitely look for a specific level of college education. I do try to find a career that kind of makes sense with my own, or that they have a career. Those things are kind of important.
It's okay. And in LA, I feel like the whole thing about just having a job, it's such a joke, because there are a lot of actors obviously in LA. And so the joke becomes like, oh, he's employed, he's not on, he's unemployed. Um, but I myself too, when I look at them, like for me, a deal breaker is if I see a topless photo, then I'm like, I guess I could see your fit, but like, are you that into your own self, for posting, especially if there's more than one? If there's more than one topless photo, it's like for women, I guess the equivalent of a bikini photo, but I would just be like, I would never do that because it's not what the attraction for me is. Like, I don't want to, I can see your fit and that's enough for me. So that's in the gym that like the famous gym shot too with the phone. Like,
I mean, it kind of depends. If it's a guy that like has enough of other photos to make it okay that he has the one gym picture, it like, if the other pictures are him with friends or him with a pet or him doing an activity and then there's one gym picture, okay. Because I've talked to some guys and they know that they're doing that on purpose to get some of that physical attraction, thirsty kind of vibe. Um, and I feel the same about like the bikini shot. I don't post in bikinis, but like when I changed my Bumble profile pic from like just a simple face pic to a full body with a dress where you could see a little bit of cleavage and a little bit of leg, definitely I got more likes. So you do have to be a little strategic.
and what do you write on your profile, to be strategic? Do you have like any particular things that you said that you think was helpful?
So I'm very intense and I have a very, I have a career and I'm I'm successful. So I have heard that that is not necessarily the most attractive feature in a woman, and so I try to highlight how I'm also fun.
I love that. I'm also fun. But I have heard that too, that like women who are successful or are very direct can be intimidating because you know me, I'm very direct too. And when I started, the online dating, which I've been on and off and trying to like, oh no, I don't like it, I don't like it. My therapist actually went through the profile with me and made sure that like the pictures were kind of reflecting what I was looking for and like the things that I wrote were also reflecting the things that I wanted. Um, but on the superficial end, like I'm with you on the sense like for me, a deal breaker is a cat. if I see a man has a cat, I know it's really arbitrary, but I'm like,
Not though, because I also like I have a dog. I'm a dog person. I'm not necessarily a cat person, so I totally get it.
and I'm allergic to cats, so I'm like, I would have to take pills every day to make this relationship work, which I can if that's the only issue with you. But one time I dated a guy that had two cats, and he was so weird. Like, he would actually have to put his cats to bed on their own bedroom every night. And I told him, like, listen, I'm allergic. Like, can you make sure that at least when I'm over, like, the sheets are clean and there's no cat hair or anything? And he didn't. And I would sneeze all night. And I remember one time waking up with the cat on top of me. I'm like, what is going on? Like, so from that moment on, I was like, that's it. No cats. He was also like a very kind of selfish kind of person. And so I feel like maybe he had a cat like personality.
I mean, totally. I like with cat. Like I like cats. I'm okay with cats. Like it's like, but I'm definitely a dog person. But the one that I think, I mean, there's two. One that I didn't think it was a problem until recently was I definitely have to check that they're liberal. Like, because even if it says moderate, if somebody in their profile says that they're moderate, they're conservative and they just are afraid to say it. Um, and so that one is really important because I've had several dates where like the guy turns out to be very conservative, especially in terms of like gay and trans rights, and my entire community is gay and trans people, and I definitely love my gay friends, and I don't want to have to stop having the friendships that I have because of a guy and to date somebody that is not inclusive that way. And then the other one that is really silly, but I don't think I can be in a relationship with a vegan.
Oh my God, me too.
And it's like I respect their choice, and I think it's great that they decide to do that, and that's a decision that anybody makes for themselves. But for me, like I like food, and I like to go to any restaurant and eat whatever I want, and to be in a relationship with someone that like immediately restricts where I can go or what I can eat. Um, that's not great. And then in addition to that, like a couple of the vegans that I've gone out on dates recently have been kind of mean about it. Um,
Oh,
like I went out with this guy, and he picked the place. We went to a vegan place in Santa Monica. He ordered for us, which I don't like when guys do that, but fine. He ordered for the table, and we ordered some pancakes and some eggs. Not eggs, but fake eggs. Um, and then after the date, I was like, "So, how long have you been a vegan?" He was like, "I hate that question. How long have you been eating flesh? How long have you enjoyed the taste of flesh?" And I was like,
all
I
my
was
life.
literally just trying to like start conversations so that you can tell me I decided to be a vegan because of health reasons or because of puppies or whatever reason you have. But he went into this really mean place unnecessarily. And then I was like, well, I don't know what to tell you about that. Like and I like he was kind of playing but also not playing, and like I just didn't need that tension that early in a first date.
Yeah. And did he ask you, like, do you mind if I order for the table or did you just order?
He just ordered.
Oh, no. Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm a very easy eater, and I don't have a problem with like eating anything. But at the same time, like I if I don't feel like pancakes because I want to eat something fruity, then I should be able to eat something fruity.
Of course. And I even think your dog agrees because he's barking. And yes, I'm assuming. But I would love to hear more about the conservatives because I know you've shared some of that experiences on social media. Like, tell us one of these stories. And I'm with you. But beyond just being gay and trans rights, it's like it also is a fundamental issue when you're talking about building a life with someone. And you need to know that their morals and values align with yours. Because what if you do have a child in the community, in the gay community? That's a bigger problem, right? I would never turn my back on my own child, regardless of what they turn out to be in whatever spectrum of anything on disability or in gay like sexual orientation or whatever it is. But that's a problem if your partner doesn't feel the same way and now you have a kid that might have any kind of differences from the normative mainstream community. So I'd love to hear that story.
Well, and this is a bummer because I actually really like that guy. I went uh I had matched with this guy. He worked in tech, owned his own house. Um was really sweet. Our first date, we he came over to my place at 6 in the morning with coffee to walk my dog with me because I do an early morning walk every like in the mornings. And so like he brought me bagels, brought me coffee. Like we had, it was a great 1 hour walk. We were chatting the whole time. It was like it seemed like a really great match. He was really attentive, has was texting and calling me every day. Um, and we were hanging out, and I think it was like the third or fourth date. We were at my place. We were watching The Last of Us. It was episode 3. And if
Oh,
anybody
whoa.
has watched The Last of Us, they know that episode 3 is this beautiful love story between two men. Um,
And it's amazing. I mean, everybody, I was hysterical. I watched it twice. I couldn't, I'm like, oh my God, this is, I never looked at a strawberry the same way ever again.
yeah. And so we were watching, and halfway through the episode, he had a very violent reaction when we realized it was a gay story. And he just like basically he thought I knew what the episode was about, which the episode had just come out an hour ago, so I obviously hadn't watched it and I had not read the reviews yet. Um, and he thought I did it on purpose to test him because we had spent some time just debating intellectually um, gay rights and trans rights, and he was from the Muslim community, and I had not dated somebody who had grown up Muslim. I had dated some people from Iran, and just like I consider myself pretty open to at least get to know people and then see what the issues are later. But he thought I was testing him by playing this episode to see what his reaction would be, and his whole issue with it was that um, he was annoyed that Hollywood was trying to push the gay agenda, and like it's not bad to be gay, but I don't have to see it in all of my TV kind of response. Um and I that was a Sunday the day after my birthday party, and my like for my birthday party I was at a club, and 80% of the guys who went were gay. And so like at that moment I was like, oh, I think I have to break up with you. And so like I had the conversation. I was like, oh, I think we have very different values here. And he was like, well, I can learn. And I was like, okay, let's see. Like I'll give him a couple more dates. And the next week he just kept texting me articles about how um that the argument that trans women are not women kind of thing. And that's how I knew, like, because it was not only that he didn't agree with my values, but he was also trying to like convince me that his values were the right ones. And unfortunately, I really enjoyed hanging out with him, and it was really sad when I decided that it was over. But it had to be because. And then, like, as we talked more about religion and stuff, like, he really wanted to raise his kids Muslim, and I wasn't sure. It was not something that I could commit to that early in knowing somebody without having tried the religion and like understood it and read the Quran and like gotten educated. And so it just seemed like it wasn't going to be a match long term.
But I love that you're even open to like, well, let me investigate it, let me read it, let me see if this is something that I might be able to agree with in the future, you know. But I love that you were so consistently open, but he wasn't. And I think the problem really lies when he was trying to convince you that what his vision is the best vision, the right vision, whatever it is of what's right or wrong, and that's concerning. But when you are on the dates, right, do you have a rule? Like, do you make a call before you meet in person? Do you like, because I've heard everything. I've heard like, oh, you should FaceTime, and I remember when I tried FaceTiming, it didn't work for me because like literally this guy was just like setting up the camera like around his face. I'm making like Vogue hands, and when I met him in person, yeah, he was literally just like really an out of shape, overweight guy, which there's nothing wrong with, but like you misrepresented yourself. And to me, health is really important because like my father died when I was really young because he didn't take care of his health. So my concern is always like, are you taking care of yourself? Do you plan to hang around if we're going to do this family thing? Because I'm going to need that.
Yeah.
And from that moment on, I was like, no more FaceTime.
I don't like the phone calls and the FaceTime. Like, I'm okay with a phone call as long as the date is like scheduled pretty quick after that. But for example, I matched with a guy last year. I was in New York for the upfronts in May, and we matched like right before I went to the upfronts, or when I was already in New York. I don't remember. And so for a week, we were texting and calling because I was out of town, and he seemed like the nicest, sweetest guy on the phone. Like, so intelligent, and like talked a lot about poetry, and like, was coming on to me really hard. And then when I met him, we went for coffee, like a very low stakes coffee. And the only way to describe him was he was a professor at a university, and like, he was an angry professor. Like, everything about his vibe was angry. Like, it was like as if his aura was like just black. And the same guy who was very lovely on the phone was kind of rude in person. And that's like, it wasn't even that he was attractive or not, or taller or not. Like, yeah, those things matter, and I do definitely think that going on an in-person date, you have to check if you're attracted to the person. Because even though I want to believe that you fall in love with the person, you also like, like certain physical aspects. um but for me, it's more like, it is their vibe good? Like, are they rude to the waiters? Like, are they mean? Are they? And that's the thing that you can only sense in person.
Yeah, or are they going to order your food for you?
Yeah.
That's
Which
another
like,
one.
I don't love, but I don't hate. But like, if you're like actively like antagonistic whenever we're talking, it's like, why? The same thing happened to me a month or two ago. Had a 1 hour phone call with this guy. He was fine. He said something weird about like him really caring about a woman's toes, and like how his like their nails would like have to have a good pedicure, which was weird, but like, I like pedicure, so fine. um but then in person, like, he wouldn't let me talk. Like, I like, as we were in the date, and I would ask him a question, and like, you ask a question, you assume they're gonna ask a question back. And no, he just kept talking and talking and talking, like, spend the entire date complaining about how the coffee shop that he chose was awful, and they had terrible service, and like, you picked it, bro.
Wow. Yeah, I've been in a date that the guy wouldn't like even inquire about me. But the worst, I think, is when they assume, oh, that's what you want or that's what you like, and I'm like, wait, but we just met. You don't know me at all. So how do you know what I like? And it's been pretty interesting. So you do that, but you go on these dates. You mentioned on the one before that you came to your house. I feel like that's very brave. I feel like people don't see it
That
or
was,
know.
that was the fourth date, so like, he had already earned the right. Oh well, we went walking as a first date, but we went walking. It was outside my house. It wasn't in my house.
Right. So he kind of knew where you lived, but it wasn't exactly like he can show up to your door in case something goes awry in the future.
Yeah.
Um, which is a concern too. We see these television shows about women dating from online. The Tinder swindler is a famous one. And like, I'm always scared of like, oh my God, is this person who really seems to be who they are? Have you ever felt like you've been catfished or experienced something like that?
Not really. And I've gone on a lot of dates, but I've never had someone catfish me, or where I felt like murdery vibes. And usually, like, if I feel like, in general, like, I'll try to do a coffee shop, or a drink, which is pretty safe. Um, and I usually do not let me pick me up from my place on the first date, and I will drive my car and meet them wherever I'm going. Um, that's the standard. Um, and so, no, I in general haven't felt unsafe on dates. I feel more unsafe with like, the guy who forces you or pressures you into having sex on a first date when you don't want to, or like those kinds of things, but never unsafe in like, he's gonna murder me tomorrow kind of way.
And has it ever happened that you felt like the day wasn't going well, but then he was like, oh my God, this is an amazing date?
It's happened a few times, where like, very early on, I'm like, not a match, but then the guy will message me to try to get another date. And I think it happens both ways. The guy that I was telling you about, the coffee shop complainer guy, definitely texted me trying to ask me for another date, and I was like, no. I didn't think it was a match, and then he was like kind of rude about it. He was like, yeah, I kind of noticed that you wanted to leave very quickly, and so like I thought, but like, but in a way that he was totally saying, well, you're a bitch.
Oh, wow. Because I'm like, how do you handle that? I have a friend who told me this story, which I thought was hilarious, that she went on an online date with this guy. And then afterwards, he texted her and she said very clearly to him, like, listen, I don't think we're a match. I think you're a good guy, but I don't think we're right for each other. And his response was, why? Do you think you're too good for me? Fuck you. You're not too good for me. I break up with you. And she's like, we've been on one date. So have you ever had any of those? Because I feel like, luckily when I have told someone, listen, I think we are not right for each other, it's either don't hear back. It's like a no response, which it kind of makes me feel like, oh, see, I was right. This is not a match. Or I hear like, oh, okay, thanks for letting me know. Because I think it's really kind to let somebody know you're not wasting their time.
Oh, I think it's the kindest thing. And I like, on the opposite, as a woman, like, if I'm being a little too aggressive and I'm trying to ask you out on a second date and you don't want to, just tell me. Don't just like ghost, or like, the one that I hate is when guys respond to all the questions that you've asked except for when are we seeing each other again.
Oh, yeah. The small talk guy.
Yeah. And so I really hate that. And so I usually try to be very direct with when I don't feel it's a match with somebody. And it can be as vague as, sorry, you're vegan and I'm not, and that's, he can think that I'm a little superficial, but like, that's okay. Um I I think it's the kindest thing to do to just let them off the hook quickly. But yes, I've definitely had guys who have been, kind of not great at the responses. That's less typical. Most of the time, it's the ghosting or the, okay, I get it, thank you, and then you move on.
That's good. And I'm sure you've gotten this question because I have to on dates. Like, what is that you're looking for? What do you answer to that?
Um, I really hate that question because it is hard to know what you're looking for on a first date. But, my typical is like, I'm looking for a partner. I am at a point in my life where I'm hoping to start a family at some point, but honestly, like, no pressure. And I don't want to get married tomorrow, but I definitely, at some point, I do want to get married and have kids and the whole thing. And I'm dating to see if I can find that person.
I think that's a great answer because I ask the same question to guys before I ever meet with them. And I'm learning a little bit more of how to refine that question because I've gotten like, oh, I want to have kids one day. Oh, yeah, I want to get married one day. And now I'm like, no, no. What is your vision for the future? My favorite answer is, oh, when I meet the right person, I'll know. I'm like, no, you won't. Like, what do you want for your life? Do you want to be married? Do you want to have kids? Do you want to live in LA? Do you want to live in Kentucky? Like, what is it that you want? Like, how do you see your life going?
But I also think that, like, a lot of people don't know until they know. Like, um, the only thing that I definitely think is a filter is like, if I ask a guy, what are you looking for, which I definitely don't ask. I wait until the date and see where it's going and like figure it out later. Um, but if it comes up that a guy asks me, what are you looking for? And then I ask it back, if he says fun, I know he means sex. And although I'm a normal human, I like sex, I don't necessarily am dating just to sleep around. I'm dating to find a person. It can be a short term person or a long term person, but it has to be with an intention of building something with feelings. Um, and so that's definitely a thing that is a red flag for me. And whenever a guy texts like, "Do you want to fuck?" or "Do you want to come over tonight?" That's a red flag for me.
I love that. I haven't gotten those yet because I feel like if I did, I just wouldn't respond. And I always joke that if I ever get a dick pic, trust me, it's going to be on the internet within 5 minutes. So don't ever send me one of those unless you want the world to see it
Well,
because I feel like that's not appropriate.
the unsolicited dick pics are definitely not appropriate. I definitely do respond whenever a guy says like, "Do you want to have sex tonight?" I'm like, "No, thank you," and then like, mean, and I'm like, "Meh," and then I block them.
I don't get it. It's like, okay, they're gonna send you a dick pic and you're gonna be like, whoa, that's so beautiful. I now totally want to have sex with you. Like, I don't understand.
What is the most beautiful thing in the world? Penises. Sure.
Yeah, trust me, straight women do not find that super attractive. I mean, we're talking about again the gay community. Sure, I have a lot of my gay friends like, oh my god, look at this beautiful penis. But I have never like actually I have one girlfriend who have said that to me. But that's it out of my entire lifetime. So that is not a thing that straight women really like are convinced on having sex by, a dick pic. And I never share any kind of like personal images of myself either because I'm one, like I don't want those things out there. But two, it's also like I don't really get it. Like if it's a video thing and you like have a boyfriend or husband, whatever, out of town, I get it. But like if it's a picture, like okay, cool, thanks. I don't know.
Again, if you're in a relationship and you know exactly who it goes to, okay, fine. But never to a random stranger out of nowhere that you don't know yet.
Yeah, my advice for that is just Google a photo, take a snapshot, cut it off, and then send it as if it was you. If that's something that you really want to be doing. But then we're back to the like deceiving, right?
My ex boyfriend did that to me once, and I fucking hate him still.
Wow, please tell me more about that story.
This was like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years after we had broken up, and we had a very toxic relationship. And at some point, we had reconnected and we were talking again. And he, even though was already married, was asking me for naked pictures. And I was like, "Well, you send me a dick pic first." And he sends me one. And then a couple of days later, he admits that it wasn't even his penis. And I was like, what twisted person are you that you're doing all of this to like mess up emotionally with your ex while you're already married? Um and I
Yeah,
like, and I kept telling him like, I don't want to send you a picture, like it's not good. Like, yeah, ex-boyfriends, bro.
I know. And honestly, like, sounds like you dodged a bullet because anybody who's married to somebody else, connecting with his ex, asking her for like nude photos, really is not somebody I would want to be married to.
Oh, many many years ago. And yeah.
And now that you have some experience in this, I think you have such a great attitude when it comes to online dating. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation today. What are some tips that you can, bestow the rest of us about engaging on online dating?
I mean, the simplest one is it's a numbers game. And I, for the longest time, I didn't have the mental space to go out on dates. I was really busy in my job at a network, and I just didn't have the time. And you have to make the time, and that means that yes, you're going to be swiping, and you're going to have a lot of mediocre conversations that end after a day or two, and you're going to have a bunch of mediocre dates. Um, but you're also going to have some great dates. And if you go into the dates with like, I just want to learn about people. For me, it's always like, what can I learn about this person? Like whether they have an interesting job, like, can I steal a character out of them? Can I like, learn something about culture from them? And you can have really great fun experiences, and it can be no pressure and it can be easy. And also, I think another one that is really important for me, that's taken me a while, is learn how to eject early. Like, your time is also valuable. If you're having a terrible date, it's okay to leave after 30 minutes if you finished your coffee. um, and there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, thank you, not a match, bye.
Yeah, that's a good one. I feel like for especially I don't know how you grew up, but growing up in Brazil with a Catholic mother, it was like be nice, think about others first. And it's taken me a long time to feel the same way. Be like, nope, this is the match, and obviously be polite, be kind, and then walk away and be like, we're good. And that happened to me once. Like the moment I saw this guy coming, it was a coffee date, which I don't know. I don't do a lot of those because I feel like one, when I'm not super certain, I will, but also sometimes like it's nice to have like a slow start. Alcohol is fun and you're out, but then you might have a drink, and now you're just like, okay, now I'm kind of drunk, and I don't really know if you're like that much fun or if I'm more fun than you right now. And that's why I think this is going well. But this guy, I saw him approaching and I was wearing a dress. It was summer, it was a summer dress. It wasn't anything special. I had like, flats on and a dress. He was 11 maybe. And he goes, "Ooh, I see you're wearing a dress for me." And I was like, "Huh? Number one, not for you. But two, I also like the moment I saw him approaching, I'm like, we're already not a match. I just know by that one comment and by like just your first impression, because that's it too. Like as an actress, they tell me like, oh, we know if you're the right person within 10 seconds you walk into the room. And it's all the energy and the way you carry yourself and all those things that like you read as a whole person before you start speaking. So that was kind of the same thing, and now I feel like dates are kind of similar. Within the first 10 seconds I'm like, okay, this is someone I'm curious and I want to know more about, or this is someone that I'm like, I just don't think this is going to work. But on that coffee day he went on to talk about like his job and stuff, and he was really aggrandizing himself, and he didn't realize that I understood his business very well, living in New York for many years. So I just said, "Oh, really? I have these friends who do these things." And then he started to backtrack, like, "Oh, well, my job is not that important and more like in the clerical side of things and, whatever." And I was like, "Okay, well, it's just been great to meet you." And I just left. And that was it. We never spoke again. I think it was such a clear understanding that we just were not a match. That there's no words were necessary of parting goodbye.
Yeah, I think when both of you do the mutual ghost, it's perfectly fine. But if at least one person is texting, then the right thing to do if it's not a match is just to say, "Hey, not a match. Sorry. Bye."
But going a bit deeper past the first few dates on an online date, right? So what, let's say it's a match and you guys are going steady. Like, how do you approach the next phase of, is it time to delete the app?
Um so I generally do not date more than one person at a time except for first and second dates. Like I try to not be seeing multiple people if I'm already sexual with one of them.
Hmm.
That is my personal rule. That's how I just don't have the time, the energy, the mental space to be juggling a lot of people. Um and so generally I uh once the relationship has progressed to a point where like we're having sex and it's been a month or two and it seems pretty stable, I don't necessarily delete the apps because that's a lot of work to delete them and put them back in on and off consistently. I just don't go on them.
Yeah, the reason I asked is because I dated someone and that became an issue. Like we agreed to not see other people, so we were exclusive, but we weren't committed to each other. And the app was on the phone. But one of my friends like went on it on a weekend and it was hilarious and we were laughing. She's like, "I've dated every guy on Hinge. Let's go look at them." And she actually did at some point like respond to my friend. You haven't texted her back and whatever. Now she's actually dating someone for 2 years that she met on Hinge, so it worked out for her. She actually very successful on the apps. Like the boyfriend before that was also another Hinge boyfriend for like 2+ years. So she's been very good at like weaving through, the crowds. But it was a joke, and like that became a whole problem. Like, why are you on it? I'm like, well, I'm not on it, but meanwhile you're using Instagram like it's an online date because I see like you DM me and that's how you like insisted on this relationship. And I said, okay, you looked at this app, let me look at your Instagram. And he wouldn't, and it becomes like the whole flip of like, well, but it was what you did. I'm like, well, then let's see the kind of conversations you're having.
Yeah, I have learned never to go into people's phones.
Yeah.
You don't want to know what's in there.
Yeah. And so that's part of what happened. But to your point, it's like, okay, I didn't delete the app. It was there. I really wasn't engaging in it. It just happened that this whole thing happened at the same time. But the conversation didn't really exist of like, why are you on this app? Or why is the app on here? What is that we're doing together? It became like an accusation kind of thing. But that kind of made me realize like, oh, you're so defensive because you're probably doing it. And that's when I was like, yeah, let's see it. Because, and again, he moved on to some other person that he was stalking on Instagram and, using it as a dating app. So it became very clear to me that this was kind of his MO. Later on, I did see him on Raya and I was like, oh no, this you shouldn't be allowed. Should I report this profile? But I didn't. I said, you know what? Like, all the power to you, man. Do your thing. But those are really great tips. I feel like eject early when you think it's on a match and make sure that it's going it's you getting to know the person a little bit with curiosity while you're there. um any other like red flags to watch out for on the apps besides like the first ones that we mentioned in the beginning?
I mean, one that is, I think, more pervasive now that there's more bots or weird things. Oh, I did get not a catfish because I never actually met him, but I matched with this guy, hot pictures, whatever. And like the moment we connected, I was like, he's talking with broken English. Like he said he was from Germany. His pictures definitely didn't look German. But I was like, well, maybe he's like mixed, whatever. And the more we spoke, the more it was very obvious that he was not, not from the States.
Mm.
Um, and I don't know, we texted for like a week or two because I was out of town and like we hadn't made a scheduled a date. And it got to a point where like this guy kept like mentioning how he worked in crypto, and I was like, cool thing, bro. And then at some point I was like, okay, I'm coming back from my trip. I'm going back to LA. Should we set up a date? And he was like, well, depends. Do you trust me? And I was like,
Mm?
basically, the guy was trying to get me to download some crypto shit and like invest in crypto.
Wow.
And so like I obviously knew that it wasn't whatever those pictures weren't him. And then about a month later, I saw him again under a different name, and I totally reported the profile. And then I saw him a third time, and I reported the profile again because he's obviously like a scammer type person.
Yeah, trying to prey on women who are trying to find a relationship. And that has happened to one of my friends, like, and that wasn't so direct, and so quick, but that guy took months to try to like convince her that they were in a relationship. And eventually he got her money and disappeared.
Well, that's why like the most important thing I think is you should meet them in person quickly because it's those people, the ones that like you text for months and you never see, but you sort of get emotionally attached because you talk to them every day. Those are the ones that can be red flags, or like if you're not seeing him, he's not a real person. He's somebody in somebody's basement, preying on women.
Yeah, and that's important too. Also, just for the success of the relationship. But everything I've read online says that the quicker you meet them off the app, the quicker, like, more like opportunity there is to for the relationship to succeed. But that's also a question that I ask before I meet anyone, which is always like, what are you looking for? And if they say, I don't know, I'll find out when I see it. And I'm like, that's not good enough for me. Like, I want somebody who knows what they want. Another thing that I see on the apps, at me, at least Hinge, it says like whether or not you want kids or not. And if they say, I'm not sure, I'm like, you're 47 years old, bro. You should know by now whether or not you want to have a kid or not. You know,
Those are things that I definitely filter through. Like if they have, again, if they're moderate or conservative in their political views, if they don't want to have kids, um, if they say they're looking for casual, because most people either don't have it. If you don't know what you're looking for, you either don't have it, you say I don't know, or you say relationship. If if you're looking for sex, just say casual. At least for me, and I try to like sift through a lot of that.
no, I like this translation because for me, like, I don't know what those things are. And I'll be like, and one guy said, oh, you seem fun. Let's meet up tonight. I'm like, oh, no, I think that means sex. And I didn't respond. But, those are the kind of things that, like, I would be like, I am fun. We should go meet up. And then I'll be in a situation that I wasn't expecting.
Yep, I've learned through the years to not put myself in those situations anymore. But definitely in my young 20s, if a guy texted me or like a guy from an app messaged me at 10 p.m., come over, let's watch a movie on Netflix. Sure thing, bro. Yes, of course. Um, I have a friend whose rule is she never agrees to a same day date. She always, even if she's available, she pushes it to a different day because she likes making plans. I can be open to like the guy that I'm currently seeing, and we've been seeing each other for a month now. Was definitely a thing where he messaged me on a Saturday night, like, "Hey, um, I I'll be free tonight if you want to come." And I actually had a party, and I was like, sorry, I can't today, but like maybe tomorrow. And so we ended up making plans to see each other the next day. Um, but if I had been available, I could have been like, yeah, sure, let's go grab a movie or something because I had no plans.
But you didn't, and it's working out. So, what are the things about this profile that kind of jumped out to you?
Honestly, I being super super honest, I wasn't that into his profile. He's an actor, and I don't like to date actors in general.
Same.
Um,
And I'm an actor, so I guess I can say that.
yeah. And so like that was a thing that I wasn't necessarily into. His pictures were cute. Um, we had not that much conversation. He asked two or three really smart questions and then asked me out immediately. And it was just timing that I happened to have a free Sunday that week, and said yes to the date. But like as soon as I met him in person, I was like, oh, this guy is great. I
Oh, I
was
love that.
I was super attracted to him in person. He is cuter in person than in pics because like he's one of those people that has like an awkward smile on camera, and I do too, so I get it. Um, and in person, like we just like spent the entire day laughing, and it was super like it was such a fun, easygoing date. um and I hadn't had that much fun in a date in a couple months, and it was like one of those where like we were at a bar. From the bar we went to like the back room where there was dancing. From the back room we went to get pancakes. From pancakes we went to his place, and we slept together. We didn't have sex, we just like cuddled, and like it just felt like it was all going very organically and very like lovely and sweet and nice, and very like he was a respectful person who understood consent, who like when I said, hey, like I just want to sleep over here because I'm kind of drunk and I don't want to drive my car back home, and like is it okay? And he was like completely respectful. um and so like the consent thing is amazing, very sexy, but also we had so much fun. And it turns out that he's not just an actor, he's also a writer, and like there's so many other layers to him. um but I wouldn't have known that from his profile.
Right. And how quickly after that did you guys see each other again?
We saw each other the next day actually. He goes to ride to this coffee shop and he was like, come ride with me. And I actually like I texted him my number. He didn't text me back that morning, and I was like, oh my god, he's no longer like interested. um he's just not into going into his profile, and we hadn't changed phone numbers yet because I don't like to give my number before I go on a date because they might not be real people.
Well, that's why I use a Google number, ladies and gentlemen. That's a great tip. Like, get a Google number. That's like my spam phone number. So whatever comes through that, I know to give it a second look later. But yeah, all my dates that I've met online, I would say 99% of them got the Google number before getting the real number.
Look at that. Yeah, I like the fact that like if they stay on the Bumble app, I don't have to check it that often. It gives me the freedom to not be on top of it and like come back when I'm open instead of like waiting for the guy to text. Um, and so whatever, I ended up deciding to on a whim. It turns out this coffee shop where he likes to go ride is half a block around my house.
Nice.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna pop in and see because he said I should come over, and he told me what coffee shop it was and at what times he goes, and like I'm just gonna do it, and I'm gonna be really stalkery and weird. And so I did, and we hung out for like 6 hours just riding together. And then he walked me home, and then we saw each other the next week, and then like we saw each other the next week 3 times that week, like on a Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And then the next week we saw each other another like Monday, and so like consistently like 2 or 3 times a week since we met.
And the reason I ask is because a lot of the success stories that I've been hearing on this podcast really cut to the chase. You know, there's no playing, there's no games, there's no like, I'm going to call her 3 days later. It's really like that. Like, oh, we hung out all night and then the next day and then the next day. And then now we're like boyfriend and girlfriend. And it is that quick when it works well and it's going smoothly. So that's why I wanted you to share that with our audience today.
Yeah, and it definitely was a thing where like I have this thing where like I am a little anxious. I do have an anxious attachment style, and so like especially after first dates, I get really nervous that they're not going to call me, or I get all like. And the thing that gives me calm is knowing that there's a next date already scheduled. And then like
Mhm.
the more I get comfortable, it's easier for me. And so this guy was definitely challenging me because for the first few hours after I gave him a number, he didn't even text back, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Um, and then he, it it went a little slow in terms of setting, like, after we saw each other that Monday to seeing each other again the next week. And I was like, well, he hasn't asked me out this week and this weekend, and I guess he's not interested. And like, I don't know. But also, like, he did sort of ask me out, but I was unavailable like that weekend. And so, like, it just hadn't worked out. But then the third time we saw each other, he was very engaged and like, after he walked me home, we went to the rooftop and we had like another hour conversation, and then he came downstairs and we saw an episode of 6 Feet Under because he really likes the writing. And so, like,
I do like that
that's
show.
when I knew that I was like, oh, he's definitely interested. And perhaps, and I think it was also me, like, I was so nervous the second time I saw him that, like, when he asked me, like, will I see you again? I played it cool and I said maybe, and I guess he thought I was playing games, and so, like, I it it I'm glad that in this case, me being a little anxious worked in our favor because, like, he probably is also anxious too, and we were able to meet in the middle. But yeah, I mean, we all play some sort of games. We don't know when we do it sometimes.
Yeah, it's a protection mechanism for sure. Try not to get hurt and based on our previous experiences. So I'm glad this time you took a chance. Seems like it's working.
So far, I mean, you know, I have a pretty, since I have focused my energy in dating again in the last 3 years in the post-pandemic world. I definitely, like, go through periods where I go on like a ton of first dates, and then I find somebody that like stays, and then I go through 2 or 3 month relationships, and then like they end for whatever simple reasons, and then like you restart. And so it's only been a month, so far so good. I also do not want to like get too excited before it's time, because I do believe that it takes a couple of months to really understand if people fit in your life, um, or not.
No, I agree with you. And, we're rooting for you. You can definitely trust that. Thank you for being here today and sharing your experience to our listeners. Where can we find you if we want to connect with you?
You can find me on Instagram at AudreyMTZ87. It means Adriana Martinez 87. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. In case we have more curiosity about how your relationship is going, definitely on a like check in, not in a creepy way, but I'm a sucker for romance stories. So I definitely hope that it works out.
Thank you.